Welcome back to RETCON. I hope everyone had an incredible night last night in New York. I know I sure did. Thank you and all for joining us this morning, bright and early. Super excited to see everyone here. We have a great day planned for everyone. A ton of great content planned out. Similar to yesterday, we'll have our big main stage general sessions in here, which we're all here for, and then we'll break out into our tracks. Similar to last year, we'll have our multifamily stage, we'll have our office track, and then we'll also have our build track covering the latest in construction and development technology. So a ton of awesome content for everyone. Ton of amazing speakers this morning who I'm super excited to welcome. First up, I'm really excited to welcome our first speaker today, Ms. Tiffany Gherlone. We'll be hearing a lot about her really unique role this morning, but first off, she's the head of U.S. Asset Management for Real Estate at a tiny little bank called UBS. Before her role, she was recently head of research and strategy at UBS, which we'll be diving into as well. So Tiffany, welcome. Tiffany, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So good to see you.
Everybody.
Yeah. So Tiffany, we talk a little bit about you and your role earlier, but I'd love for the audience to hear a little bit more about you, what you do, your day to day. What does being head of asset management for all of the United States at UBS entail?
When we thought about this session, I was thinking I can't talk to everyone, but I'd really like to meet people. So James will ask the questions, but really the conversations with everyone here. And I was thinking back to 2015. I was at one of my first data strategy meetings in the industry, and there was a conversation. There's always this undertone of, we need to get senior management on board, this has to come from the top, and all the stresses that come with structure and trying to get structure right. And I've realized there is no perfect structure, so whatever you're doing or trying, I imagine it's changing over time at your platform. Totally fine. I think I'm feeling like I'm up here for a little bit of a sanity check, and I do not think that we're doing everything perfectly at UBS, so I'm happy to talk about what's gone wrong, what are the pain points, and not just paint it like some insta-perfect approach to incorporating digital integrations and technology into the investment process. But I'm really happy to take any questions anyone has as we go along, but we can run through it. That's the basic why I'm up here on this stage. I've been working on this since, what's that now, 7 or 8 years.
That's incredible. And I've heard a little rumor that you've never negotiated a lease. Is that true?
Really, here's the background story of how this happened. So I'm a voting member of our investment committee, management forum. When people say they or management they don't understand, they need to back this, they need to be public about some project we're working on or integration we're trying to get pushed forward, I usually whisper under my breath, I think I'm the they. I think I'm the they. And, but I've never, so I was head of research and I thought that was where I would retire. So I think I had made head of research by age 34, and I had this moment.
No big deal.
Yeah, and I had this moment where I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be the position I retired from. Maybe it's not. What's next for me? Yeah. And that kind of stayed in the back of my mind. Oh, maybe some people feel that way too, and I think it's actually probably going to happen to a lot of us in this digital transformation of the built environment, yeah. Because we're stepping into roles that haven't been invented. It's truly a crew of pioneers in the space, and I'm thinking, okay, but I sort of did that thing that every high school guidance counselor or college guidance counselor maybe tells you to do, what are my skills and how could they be transferable and where are they needed on the platform? And thinking about a person with a background in technology who's done all kinds of advanced modeling, predictive analytics, I'm thinking like, where's that needed? And I thought back
Not real estate.
Right. I mean, we're all kind of heading there. That's kind of the North Star, but we don't have it perfectly down. And so I pitched for a head of asset management role years ago. It has to be 3 or 4 years ago. Where I'm like, I know you don't need one now, but I want to be thought of in the succession plan for head of asset management. And the first time I said that, I was laughed at.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
The second time I said it was months later, and the reaction was actually anger.
Wow.
I think it was, I thought to myself, like, oh, maybe I'm actually onto something.
Yeah.
Because it was fear.
Yeah.
And then we got a change in CEO.
Mm-hmm.
So I pitched it again to the new CEO. I think I should be the head of asset management. And he got really quiet.
Wow.
So now I've gotten to know him better, and his wheels were going. Like, he's got this thought in his mind, like, how are we going to have a competitive edge? How are we going to be different if we don't take risk and do things differently all the way into the structure and the background of the team?
Yeah.
And I pitched it. So nothing happened. I was still head of research, still doing a lot of speaking engagements where I would talk to you about inflation hedging and markets and sectors, but and loved it. But still always feeling this need in the firm wasn't filled. And if you felt that feeling of like, man, we need to proliferate these skills in the firm, it eats away at you, and sometimes it causes job changes. And I was looking for another role for a while before. So I was out there looking. So I've been out in the market too. I'm not now.
For the record.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a secret. It's real life. So the last time, the fourth time I pitched for the head of asset management role, my boss just said, we're going to make this happen. Now, it helped that we had already made changes in our asset management group. So for those of you who are with the platform, it's not a secret, but we had already made shifts. One of our heads of asset management moved over to sustainability, and the other had left the firm. We used to have co-heads. We don't anymore. It's just me. But in the back of that, I had all different ideas for structuring, and everything was always toward this goal of being able to do more and more clean data collection and really thinking about our key data elements we needed by property type and fixating the team on strategies. So whether you're working on a debt product, an equity product, or we actually have a fund that's big enough to be its own company. And because of that, I thought, well, this needs its own vertical. Oh, that's pretty much how the structure is now defined on the strategy side. So every asset manager comes in the morning and is working on one particular strategy. We used to have people spread out across all different portfolio teams. Okay. So they would be responsible for different portfolio strategies. How does that help? They can then dig very, very deeply into what for our world is the benchmark, and understand their property level performance so that excess return at the property level becomes the North Star for an asset manager and not just driving NOI. We live on total returns. If you know the total return formula, a 1% increase in your NOI flows directly through into your total return. But what's 1% on total return these days?
Yeah. And I'm curious too, because many people in real estate is not exactly known to move quickly and innovate quickly. A lot of folks' roles had to change pretty quickly, I imagine, as well. What did those conversations look like with you and your team? What strategies did you take there?
I really hope that I read a lot, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I think about them because I have a very long commute. And my husband always says, he's like, I can tell when you've come home and you've been thinking for the entire commute, no music, no podcasts, because it's like, oh boy, this is going to cost us money. It's usually true. It's usually true. But I really hope that putting leaders in place who can model more human behavior, be truly approachable, and really flip the old real estate mindset on its head, it's going to take us a decade, maybe 15 years, but I think we'll do it.
Yeah.
And really think about, okay, I am here to make sure that we have the right employees in place to model the behaviors I need, because I'm a really selfish person that makes my job easier as opposed to having to always fight an uphill battle. And then it means that people are modeling the right behaviors for the employees. So like, what do I mean by that? I think servant leadership is too oversaid, but just a high degree of psychological safety that's missing. Too much complaining around the water cooler. I want to hear it. If I'm not doing a good job, like, I can take it, trust me. There's like telling me you're not happy that I don't do enough on-site property tours with you, that I've never negotiated a lease. Let's talk through it. Because really, my pitch to the boss was, put me in this role because I pose no threat to the existing team. In other words, what did I say exactly? The question I had was, how are you going to react when people, especially on the team, it's a team of 50 asset managers and engineers, and it's like, what are you going to say when people say, well, you've never negotiated a lease, you've never worked directly with a partner on a project, you've never done a construction draw, you've never, like, my comment was, we have 50 people on the team that do that. You do not need a 51st person. You need someone on the team that thinks differently, different background. And it took me 4 tries, so I'm not sugarcoating like, oh, and he got it right away, and now it happened, and my life's perfect. But so that was my pitch. And then my second pitch was also, I'm a manager who really loves managing people. And
not everyone does.
No, and it's like, be honest with yourself if you don't. Like, try not to, don't seek those roles. But I was seeking a role where I said, like, I want to impact people. I want to bring some of the stars to the forefront. Mm-hmm. So you start doing that, and you make enemies. And you make enemies in leadership, which I found over time, if you're aligned with the CEO, it's a really great place to be, because those people end up just talking about you behind your back, but are kind of neutralized in public conversations. That's the real truth of it at the peer level. Yeah. And then throughout the team, I mean, some people's roles have to change. And so it's like, what are you in leadership willing to do then? Are you willing to put the data conversation on your investment committee? So do you have a voting member of your investment committee, or more than one? We've now added our 3rd out of 7 data person to the IC. Wow. So the conversation changes, and it's like, this wave now, is it becoming big enough to really change the landscape? I would say still building, even with 3 data people on an IC, voting members in the management forum conversations, and having actually made changes to the staff and the team to demote people who only had deal skills and promote people who embraced a vision toward, okay, everyone in this room has deal skills, everybody on your platform has deal skills, but who is willing to go the extra mile? And just being so open to say, we're all allowed to be beginners in the data space. Like, no hubris. I don't pretend I'm an expert. It's not possible, because no one's doing it perfectly. There's no roadmap to follow. That's like, oh, here's the roadmap to perfection.
Yeah. And in terms of that roadmap, what does that look like for you? What specific data strategies have you been implementing with the team that have been very strategic and benefited UBS?
This is a concept I thought, like, how am I going to present this without giving away our, like, truly proprietary?
Everybody start taking notes.
I know, but then, I mean, I figured I would just tell you like it is. So now, when I'm in conversations with people all the way up to the group executive board of UBS, I mean, literally the board of the publicly traded firm, and real estate is 200 people out of 70,000. So in the real estate world, we have a big platform, but at UBS, we're finally getting noticed, which is good. Like, finally, alternatives are getting some press, even internally. but my thought was, okay, 3 years ago, I picked 3, it's an arbitrary number. 3 years ago, we were not valuing specific sets of data. And I really spelt this out for the team, and I just rattle them off. I'm like, so as an investment manager, I mean, you think about vertically integrated firms, you have a leg up on me. You've got investment managers, property managers, and tenants at the basic, 3 basic categories. Investment managers, what data sets do you have really good transparency on? Where's it lacking? And what if we basically sold control of data to our property managers, to our tenants, and not assigned any value to it? 3 years ago, we were saying, well, our property managers have to be best in class, and if they're best in class, then they're best in class at their data strategy, so we're done. And I'm saying, no. That means we've severely underestimated the data that we're allowing them to control and the value of it. Same goes at the tenant level. And I know that you'll have all kinds of sessions on privacy, but I mean, when it comes to data at the tenant level, there's still so much toward predictive analytics, tenant credit, that we don't collect, we don't have full transparency on, we don't survey them quite as simplistically as I'd like, with questions that become more and more scientific toward what is our end goal here, driving occupancy, driving credit, and ultimately driving value.
Yeah. I mean, something I think is very interesting along those lines is I assume UBS, large institutional firm, has a ton of advantages over smaller mom and pop shops, right?
I get that so much. That's where I'm trying to be very real and not in. I get dismissed sometimes in conferences and events like this, actually, because you have over 100 billion in AUM, and what can you possibly relate to? But I really can, and the fundamental. And actually being within the big bank, we struggled as an alternatives manager to get the attention. If you're a data person in a big bank, if you're on the CDI, the Chief Data Office or the Innovation Office, equities and bonds are so straightforward and easy. And for the most part, the data is a one-to-many relationship, in the sense that you get one Bloomberg feed, you've got to feed to many traders. So much easier. They come to me and they're like, what's your data feed? And I'm like, wait. We originate the data. Our first decision is what's our key data? And what are we going to collect? Because I could literally collect thousands of data points from each property multiplied by 400 properties in the U.S. It's remarkable.
And there's a lot of data that you have access to. How do you prioritize data? Are there any data sets that you are particularly excited about when you're making investment decisions?
Oh, I think, if anything, one of the big criticisms I get, and it's fair, is I'm too focused on excess return at the deepest level. And so I was thinking, what are some of the things that we actually innovated, that were actually new? And in 2016 or 17, really taking modern portfolio theory, applying it to private real estate, and really scraping benchmarking data down to the deepest level. What I mean by deepest level is Atlanta high-rise apartments versus other Atlanta high-rise apartments. They do exist. And CBD office in San Francisco versus other CBD office in San Francisco. And just innovating ways to get data at that level and benchmark it to the property. Because contributing to a fund or being a creative to a fund, okay. At the asset management level, office isn't going to do that if you're a diversified group. It's going to underperform industrial right now. So it's not going to be accretive. But can your CBD San Francisco office outperform other San Francisco office even by 1 basis point? That's the kind of data I focus on, and then feeding data into that model. So that's my North Star.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'd love to change tune a little bit, because I think that one conversation we haven't broached very much at the conference, and it hasn't been 100% relevant, but I think it's something that we're all thinking about is a potential cool down in the market. And as someone who looks at data all day and has such a comprehensive perspective on that, I'd love to hear your opinion on what are we looking at in the next few years, few months, whatever it's going to be, and are we, in terms of other cycles, more prepared because of the data and technology that we have at our fingertips that we didn't before?
You know, I'm just thinking of this right now, and I'm realizing that I was on the trading floor in UBS the week Lehman Brothers failed. I was watching managing directors being walked out of a catwalk over an investment floor, and I thought, what happens next? I mean, this is insane. It's this downturn. It was dramatic for someone who was in her 20s at the time on an IB floor. And I quickly realized in real estate research, no, my phone never rang off the hook more than when we were facing a downturn. Like when I was coming in as the wet blanket on a deal and saying, like, I don't see how we're going to achieve an 8.8, 5, 6, 3 thereafter in rent growth. That was hard to do in the good times, but luckily I'm thick-skinned and it's just data to me, really. I don't get passionate about a deal. They all look like cash flows to me. But my phone rang off the hook. So maybe that's an advantage I didn't even think about until this moment. I'm not afraid of downturns. In active management, that's where we earn our money. So my biggest job now is rally the troops. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure my background as not just head cheerleader, but cheerleading coach comes out, and it drives people nuts in our team calls because, like, we don't need to have a positive return if the market goes down. We just need to beat the competition by 1 basis point, and we've done our job. So let me help the team. So your NOI went down 4%. I'm making this up. It hasn't. But your NOI goes down 4%. Well,
everybody's pulling out their phones.
If the competition went down 5%, then okay, we did something better than the competition. So can I shine a light on that?
Yeah.
A downturn is systemic. We're all facing it.
Yeah.
Well, how do I proliferate that message and flip it on its head? It's back to a high degree of psychological safety on the team and trying to lead by example of focus on what's important. It's not, we've got to deliver return to the clients no matter what the condition. That's active management. That's literally what we get paid to do. So we'll do it. We can do it. It's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Well, on that great, positive, motivational note, we've concluded this session. So, Tiffany, thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you joining us.
Come say hi.
Yes, yes.